Hello, Abigail here with another astrology reading for the week. And this week, guys, it is another one of those humdingers that 2026 brings to us. I am excited for it, but it's more, I think it's more excitement as in like from the research astrology standpoint rather than from like, oh, things are going to be great. I don't know that I would necessarily say this week is good or bad. And I avoid qualifying astrology in that way, anyways. But there's just a lot happening. And this is the week that Mercury stations direct. There's a bunch of other big shifts, and safe to say it's going to be a lot. It's going to require us to like be expansive, be accepting of what is coming towards us, to kind of move with the ebb and flow of the energy. This is not, I don't think this is the week to either just flow or to just push. This is definitely a week of kind of like whatever the day brings, we got to meet it, because there is something every single day this week. And obviously in astrology there's always something happening. It's just we don't always get exact points. And then this week it's Monday two aspects, Tuesday an aspect, Leo season on Wednesday, a station, another aspect, and then two big things on Sunday. So every single day this week has something. And so be aware that this week is going to be a lot. There'll be a lot of people online being like, what's happening? We thought it was crazy before, and now it's really crazy. And you can reference this video to explain that to them. Or you can refer them to me. So there are some really beautiful aspects, but with each of them, there is a complex aspect. So I think it's important to note that Monday, we have Jupiter. And so also Jupiter is very active this week, especially in the beginning. So with the Monday, we have Jupiter trine Neptune. I actually really like this. Neptune is retrograde, so there is an element of kind of the mask coming off a bit. Whenever I find Neptune retrograde, there's a little less of a filter. Neptune is like a beautiful beauty filter, and Neptune retrograde may not be not a filter, but it's more of like those gritty filters that, unless you have baby smooth skin, definitely comes up making you look a bit haggard. And so while I think this is an element of revelation, it's also an element of being able to like dream and release. And we had Neptune Jupiter stuff happening during Jupiter's last transit in Cancer, and now because of where it's placed, we're going to have another one when Jupiter eventually goes into Virgo. We will have inconjuncts. But in this moment, and this is, I'm pretty sure this is the last and the only one that Jupiter will have, because it's never going to retrograde back to those early degrees. It'll retrograde, I think, to like the mid degrees later this year and into 2027. But this is an opportunity to really bite into the fiery aspects that we have here. Also, Jupiter's still being ruled by a water sun. And then we have Neptune that is being ruled by an air Mars. And so there is an element of like, yes, this is water, but there's dynamism and depth with the quality of Mars in Gemini and the quality of the sun in Cancer. And so it's an opportunity to be dynamic about our dreams, be dynamic about our own expansion. Also, when it comes to success and our, like how we view Jupiter and Leo, I think this has a very big influence, because Neptune is a lot about perception and the way that we see things through our own filters and our own conceptions of stuff. And then on top of that, we have the other kind of unseen filters and past lives and multiple spiritual factors that come into play. And with this trine with Neptune, there is a chance to dream bigger, to dream broader, to accept our perceptions and to accept parts of ourselves that we can recognize isn't necessarily true or innate, but it is true to us and it is innate to us. And that's still important. Like, you don't have to be 100% right for you to be valid. And with this Jupiter trine Neptune, it's kind of about being like, yeah, I am valid and I am allowed to kind of do what I want and desire what I want and be what I want. I also think especially once the sun moves into Leo, this Jupiter is going to be very much like, oh, and I kind of am the way I am, and I'm not really ashamed of it. And whoever, like, if someone is aligned with me, they're aligned with me, and if they're not, they're not. And this Neptune trine Jupiter, kind of right before the sun goes into Leo, is really about kind of being like, yeah, even without the power of the sun in Leo ruling this, there's an element of honesty and authenticity, and yeah, it can be a little overblown with Jupiter, a little broader and bigger, but our energy doesn't only exist in the body that we live in. Our energy expands far beyond us. And it's this idea that we have influence and an imagination beyond our experience, beyond the life that we've lived. We have all, possibly, not all of us, but I think most of us have had dreams of things that we can't really explain that feel very real. And so it's very much about the unseen and the expansive scene coming together. And it feels in the Mercury retrograde like a bit of an aha moment of being like, yeah, everything's kind of screwed up and wild, but I embrace my delusion. I embrace my belief in something better. I embrace a broader perspective. It's also with, Jupiter and Leo, it is about the heart and desire. And it's also about embracing what you want and what you desire without judgment, without being like, oh, this has to be what I want for forever, because Neptune in Aries is not necessarily longevity. It is a spark. It is a innate connection. And while it can be difficult for such a wet planet to be in such a dry sign, such a hot sign, it is also about getting really real and really tangible is not the word that I want, but like really visceral with our dreams and our desires, and believing that something is possible even when we don't have proof. And also believing that in order to get what we want, we kind of have to do the thing. Like Neptune in Aries is like, I don't know, let's just do it. Let's just go for it. And yeah, in some cases, it's going to make us a little overblown. I do think with Jupiter trine Neptune, we might see some people on the public stage kind of overshooting their shot. Um, believing a bit too much in themselves. I also think if you have done some foolish things with Jupiter trine Neptune, you might see the consequences of your actions. But also, part of the reason for that is because as Jupiter is trine Neptune, because of where everyone is, Jupiter is also opposed Pluto. And so there is a rawness and an honesty that, on top of Neptune being retrograde and being in Aries, Pluto is also retrograde. And it's just like this raw, visceral moment. Also, with Jupiter being in Leo and the way that Leo and Aquarius work together, and Pluto being in Aquarius, it's also leaders being caught with their pants down, people falling from power. This can also be a signature of death of very broad and popular people. Um, and I think this is a theme we're going to actually see through this Jupiter and Leo cycle because of the South Node transit across it, because of where Pluto is. A lot of people passing who are in the public eye, we're already seeing it. There's been a lot of public deaths recently. Last week at the Kazemi, we lost several people. Some it does bring a smile to my lips, and others, sad. Several actors have passed who were meaningful and actually sounds like they were quite lovely people. But with this Jupiter opposition, it is also about being like having to face the truth, and it may not even be the real truth, but having to face the weight of a possibility, the weight of something not working out, the weight of what if I fail? What if I'm not enough? Is a Jupiter Pluto thing to me. What if, it's also very fake it till you make it, and kind of being on the faking it side and feeling like you haven't made it and being like, am I just a liar? There's a lot of imposter syndrome in this. And with that Jupiter trine Neptune, I think there's not a possibility that it could be people acting out because of their insecurities. But it's also a beautiful opportunity to embrace this moment and its rawness, and to believe in something more, and to fight for something better, and to say, yeah, I see the possibility of failure, but I can only succeed if I want to survive. That's how this feels. And committing to that, committing to your success, committing to the success of your friends and your community, committing to not giving up hope, even in the face of this. Jupiter is expansive, and Jupiter does have power in this dynamic, even though Pluto is vast. And so it is this moment of recognition. Also, if we think about the archetypes of, these are the three brothers. We have Neptune, Pluto, and Jupiter. They are all siblings and they all have their own function within the power system. And so while I think it'll be chaotic for a lot of us and it might feel a bit bombastic, everything has a reason. They're all of these planets are functioning within their function and doing what they are meant to do and balancing each other out. Pluto was sent to the underworld because he basically could have competed with Zeus for power. Neptune was a little too flaky to do that, but he's kind of the silly, goofy one off to the side, philandering and stuff, but his wife doesn't care. And Jupiter is very aggressively holding on to his power, whereas I find that Pluto has more innate power. And so it is this kind of harmony and resistance of siblings almost, and power struggles between the different parts of self and the parts of belief and the ways in which we move through energy. And so I think this is a really complicated moment to kind of sit with this energy and to accept that things are the way they are, but we also don't have a clear view of the hard things either. Even the difficult stuff, we don't really know everything about it. And so I would encourage you not to let this get you down and to use it to activate your power. You can feel sad about it and upset about it, but also as we separate from this moment, use it to activate your power. And because of how fast Jupiter moves, because it's the fastest moving situation here, we'll be in this for several days. Then to kind of pull one more piece in, we have Jupiter sextile Uranus, which is another one of the great old gods. Excuse me. And so we have also the unexpected, the everything, the chaos, the innovation. So once we can kind of see the situation for what it is, then there's an element of now we can kind of work with it and turn things on their head, and we can push our own chaos forward, our own shifts. Now, keeping in mind Mercury is retrograde, so a lot of the stuff we're doing here isn't really going to fully shift until we get on the other side of that. But Jupiter sextile Uranus is big productive changes, big innovation, big transformation. It's not always functional, but it is impressive. And so putting yourself forward, believing in your projects, hyping yourself up, not being afraid of shining in whatever realm you exist in is something big. And I do think this Jupiter Leo is also going to, over the course of the whole transit, and I have a longer video on this, but over the whole course of the whole transit, I think it's also going to highlight people who are insecure about their position and stuff, and they're going to lash out. So if you are kind of coming into your security and there's someone near and dear to you or just someone around who isn't really stable on their own, I do genuinely think that it will be bringing some of the jealous people out of the woodworks. Because while I don't think that Jupiter and Leo is going to be easy with the South Node, I do think there is an element of success in here. Now, hard fought success, tenuous success, success that has to be measured and balanced and held against the very intense lens of the South Node, yes. But we're going to lose stuff through our success. And I don't think we're necessarily going to lose essentials, but we are going to have to be okay with stuff leaving our life in order to attain certain things. And Jupiter, this feels like kind of the start of that, of having to let stuff go, of having to release things, of having to accept that winning isn't just winning, it is its own dynamic. Succeeding isn't just succeeding. There are other struggles. I actually did a pick a card reading that will be released next week and not this week. Well, wait, no, it'll be released this week because, yeah, it'll be released this week, but I recorded it last week. And there was a lot of success in the reading, but something that kept coming out in the kind of clarifying cards that I used was like, success has its own challenges. And that's what we're going to learn with Jupiter and Leo is like some people are going to be winning, but winning is going to have its own consequences, good or bad. And even if you win, you still have to wake up the next day and brush your teeth and go to the bathroom. And that very much feels like this cluster here is us having to recognize what the consequences are for our expansion and our desire. And with Uranus thrown into the mix, sudden shifts and changes really electrified by Jupiter. And also, Jupiter at this point will be ruled by a 29-degree sun. And so there's a tenuousness with that final degree of Cancer. And it feels like some really big discoveries are going to come out in the world news. I think some people might learn something about themselves they weren't expected, or about their family, or even maybe about their ancestry, because Jupiter does have a rulership and a protection over immigrants, and a lot of things can be lost in translation in immigration, and so there could be some revelation about heritage in here as well, or genetic conditions that you didn't know you were sharing. But there's some sudden discovery, some sudden expansion, and so I think some really good stuff can come out of it, but I think we need to temper it, is kind of what I'm trying to say. Me realizing how long I've been talking about this, but this is important. Anyways, Wednesday, pretty simple. We go into Leo season. Also, a reminder, I do drop the little tarot readings for every single sign. Check those out. I'd really appreciate it if you share them. I do them on YouTube and on Instagram. So share, comment, like, all those things. I also have the video for Leo season will be posted before. It will be posted probably on Monday. So you can check that out. And it'll give you more details. But on Thursday, we have Mercury stationing direct. And the station day is always hard. I would not expect to get much done on this day. I would not expect to see a whole lot of stuff shifting and changing that much. Also, kind of the Sunday scaries, even though it's on a Thursday, there's like an element of just being like, has all of my work and all of my healing been for naught? Which just kind of felt like a part of, at least for me, a part of the theme of this retrograde. Um, but on the bright side, even in this station on Friday, we get Venus sextile Mercury. And this is really nice because it's kind of like a little kiss on the forehead of Mercury after it. Venus, yes, is in, fall and detriment in Virgo, but it is offering care and practical solutions to Mercury. And so I could really easily see something really nice and pleasant happening on Friday. Nothing bombastic necessarily, because sextiles I find to be more chill, but definitely some kind of communication or understanding with another person, some problem solving in a relationship, maybe meeting up with a good friend. If you don't have anything planned, then I would suggest meeting up with a good friend. Sorry, something is itching my nose. And so definitely, absolutely take Friday, especially on a Venus day, to do something nice for yourself, especially after how bombastic and kind of intense the beginning of the week is going to be. Um, this is also a good time to have a hard conversation that maybe you've been kind of putting off with the Mercury retrograde. Will it go well? That's not really here or there, but you have the best possible energy to communicate it. And with the station, it feels kind of inevitable. It feels like you kind of have to have this conversation, whether you like the astrology or not. But yeah, it's a warmth, and it's like Mercury has kind of been alone with the sun and the moon, mostly the sun this whole time. And having Venus come back is like when all of your friends have been out of town, and then one of them comes back into town and like texts you and it's like, hey, do you want to meet up? That's this vibe. And so I would suggest connecting, chit chatting with people, finding ways, calling a best friend, texting. If we're thinking about business and connections, if you've been putting something off, well, we're still under the tenuous energy of the Mercury station. If you put something off as long as you can, this is still a good day to do that thing, even though it still has that Mercury at the degree of station situation happening. Then on Saturday, we have Neptune sextile Pluto. And this, you have to remember, is a very long aspect. So they've been hanging around for a minute, and they will continue to hang around for a minute because they're both basically retrograding through the same degrees. So with this one, there is some kind of pullback of a veil. And I think it's something that benefits people to see. There's a revelation. There's, I think, the possibility of some kind of justice. Now, maybe it's vigilante justice in this situation, or someone taking the system into their own hands and doing stuff for themselves. But Neptune sextile Pluto does feel like we're getting a peek at something. We're getting an insight into something, and we might even be getting an insight that goes beyond the practical human. We might be getting an insight into an energy. We might be getting an insight into the unseen. I would not be surprised if there wasn't a cute little paper that came out around this time. We've actually seen it already with this aspect. There was one quantum physics paper about how other versions of yourself are very possibly and very likely influencing other timelines. I'm like, yay, I get to mess myself up in multiple ways. Although on the positive side, maybe I'm doing very good things for myself. And so with this Neptune sextile Pluto, there's kind of a revelation around stuff that we don't know. Um, Neptune sextile Pluto is also giving like alien stuff and um, maybe even people trying to throw red herrings because Neptune can obscure, but it's kind of sloppy. It's kind of silly. It's very much like, and you expected us to believe that, which, if you think about this having been longer lasting and you think about a certain senator from Kentucky, something might happen this day around it because this is kind of the punch point, the pinch point of this energy that's been around for a minute. Then big stuff on Sunday, big stuff. We have Saturn retrograde. It'll go retrograde till December. It go between 14 and 7 degrees. It's because it's a longer one. I've heard people be like, "Oh, outer planets don't matter," or "the bigger planets don't matter." They do. Um, is it as like intense because it is over and it's like an extended release? No, but especially on the station day, it might feel like things are crumbling. It might feel like a lot of progress has been lost. You might be looking at the midway point of the year and be like, what have I even done? Why is everything so hard? Will I ever succeed? Are things I could very easily hear being things that you are feeling and saying and other people are feeling. um you could also see it coming out in like criticism of others and people being like, oh, other people aren't doing what they should be doing as a way to like avoid their own accountability, which is kind of a Saturn and Aries thing, being like, oh, look over there. Someone else's house isn't looking very nice. What have you done? It can be the darker side of Saturn and Aries. And so just know that today is also another kind of one of those sticky days. And on top of that, we have the lunar nodes moving into Leo and Aquarius and hitting that 29 degrees, which the 29 degree is the anaretic degree. And because the nodes move clockwise and everything else moves counterclockwise, the nodes hit the late degree before they hit the early degrees, obviously. And it's about an 18-month cycle. And so this is kind of when things get really real on the fixed axes. If you have a fixed sign as your rising, this is a huge transformation in your chart. Now, we've already had the first eclipse back in the late winter, and now we're in this energy, and we're coming up on eclipse season in August. We will have a new moon in Leo on, I want to say, the 12th or 14th, and then I think the 28th of August, we have the Pisces full moon. So keep that in mind. Remember, log that away. Um, but this is where kind of the karmic stuff rubber meets the road. I would check and see what these nodes are doing. Is it a return? Is it an opposition? For me, it's a trine between my south node, north node, sextile between my north node and the south node, or my south node and the north node. So that means what it means for me. Are you in this kind of sextile trine situation with the nodes? Are you in a square? These are very important things that are going to tell you a lot about the movements of this transit. Yeah. I, for one, as a Virgo rising, am thrilled to be getting the nodes off of my first and seventh house. And guess what, folks? One of the fun things that can happen when Saturn and the North Node hit your seventh house is you can have really big relationship upheavals. Um, I can sense some of you scrambling to be like, is this happening to me? On the bright side, you won't be getting Saturn, you'll be getting Jupiter on the south. But look where this is, look what houses it falls in. It has a lot to do about the topic and the subject. If you want like past life readings, this is a great time to get a past life reading. If you just want a year ahead, this is also a very good week for that. Because there's a lot of changes, the energy is really moving, and it's kind of a partway through the year. So if you want to get a transit reading or something, hit me up. Anyways, this is a really big shift. It also is a more serious. While mutable energy is like not silly goofy necessarily, it is more fluid, and the fixed energy is not fluid. So just know that this is a more tense energy. This is also going to be bringing very bombastic eclipses. Also interesting to note, we're never going to get a eclipse season that is just Leo and Aquarius. We will have a Leo eclipse and a, no, I think an Aquarius eclipse and a, no, yeah, it'll be an Aquarius eclipse and then it'll be a Virgo eclipse. And then we'll hit the summer of 2027 and it will be, I think, a Leo eclipse. It's a, no, it's a Capricorn eclipse and then I think a Leo Aquarius eclipse. So they're never going to be alone. We'll already be moving into the next cycle by the time we hit that triple eclipse. And also keep an eye on that triple eclipse because it doesn't happen often. It's going to be wrecked. Also, don't plan a wedding for next summer. Unless you like chaos, unless you work well with chaos, then please, by all means, plan a wedding next summer. Or any major events. I just wouldn't suggest it. I wouldn't have suggested it for this summer either, but you know, I'm going to a wedding next week or this week. Nope. Actually, it'll be last week by the time everyone sees this. Anyways, big shifts, big changes. If you have anything at 29 degrees of a fixed sign or of a fire sign or of a air sign, you will be getting hit with this. And you can join me in that cohort. What does this portend? Me losing myself in my existential crisis about having the North Node on my Saturn. Exactly. So this is a huge shift. We're gonna have to see how it plays out. The upcoming eclipse will be associated with this. So very important to note, it'll be a South Node eclipse. A lot of things moving and changing, a lot of people transitioning either through death or through shifting into a different phase of life, especially with the South Node and Jupiter and everybody partying there. Also, it'll be later this year, but we are going to have a Jupiter Mars South Node conjunction, which is another one of those things I'm concerned about because that is very, very spicy and it feels like a long destined event coming to culmination and also sparking something else as well. Anyways, that is the astrology of this week. The lunar nodes are going to carry us into next week. Um, Checking my notes. Next week has a decent amount of stuff happening, but it's all very concentrated into like 2 days. And then we also have that full moon Aquarius moment. Not an eclipse, but it's going to feel eclipsy, and it's also the doorway to the eclipses. So buckle up, folks. We're already in it, and we're still in the Mercury shadow, so we're still processing Mercury retrograde anyway energy. So my advice for this week: hang in there. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of transformation in this week, but it is very uncomfy. And I know you're like, Abigail, when does it get better? And I hate to tell you that, like, from an astrological perspective, this year just continues to be a bit rough. We have eclipse season in August, and then I want to say October, maybe end of September, we get the Venus retrograde, and then we get the Mars retrograde right after Venus, like literally 2 or 3 weeks after Venus stations direct. And that carries us into the new year, everyone. So while I do think good things can happen, it is still very much kind of buckle down and hold on energy. The universe can do anything, right? And we're not bound to good and bad. But this is tenuous energy, and it's very much like the only way stuff is happening is through like the divine intervention of the universe. And a lot of the stuff we're pushing for isn't going to happen because we push for it. It's going to happen because like the heavens opened and rained stuff down upon us. Um, so focus on what you can do and focus on what you are able to manage and you're able to control. And I'm not one for like detaching from the very real and difficult times that we live in and like protecting yourself through ignorance and privilege. But this is one of those weeks that if you need to take some time off, take some time off. Like, especially if you do a lot of activism, it's not like, oh, abandon people, but like just take a couple hours to be off of your devices. Go out, go swimming, go do something fun, do something playful, especially on that Friday. That's actually some nice energy for kind of being a bit fun, a little more silly, throwing off some of the shackles. But yeah, weeks like this, it's important to temper this go, go, go energy, especially with Jupiter and Leo now, and taking care of yourself and like being present and being in the moment, because a lot of these bigger shifts can really take us out of our bodies because it's like massive extended cosmic collective thing. And especially with Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus, this is a very collective energy. Doesn't mean personal stuff isn't going to happen. It just means like everyone's going to be feeling it viscerally. Anyways, my loves, that is my reading for you. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Also, I am offering a course. It does have a fee for a class, a series of classes on psychic connection and honing intuition and a variety of different skills and practices. It has a very small amount of slots available. There are only 4 left. I want to keep it cozy and safe and a place where we can kind of learn and build community. It's $250 if you want to do my kind of flat rate price. You can DM me and pay me through a payment app, or you can buy it through my website. But there's also a sliding scale option from $100 to $350. If you want to use the sliding scale option, you can contact me on my Instagram, or you can go on my website and do that through email. Anyways, that is what I have for you. Please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please pop them below. If there's any type of a video or any information you'd like to know, I'm happy to answer simple questions or do a video on something you're curious about, as long as it feels like something I'm also interested in. Anyways, my loves, I wish you a wonderful week. I wish you many blessings. I wish you a gift from the universe, because it feels like a lot of us need it right now. And it feels like this is one of those weeks where it's funky enough for something to happen that's unusual and unexpected and beneficial. Never underestimate the power of this really intense energy. It's not all bad, it's just a lot. So I'm manifesting gifts for all of us. Anyways, my loves, many blessings, a wonderful week, and I will see you next week.